Yo, what's up, Hoophead Nation? And welcome to another episode of Buzzer Beaters. I'm Eddie Aparicio. This is my co-host, Anthony Toine Corral. And tonight, we're going to go ahead and talk about the start of the NBA trade season. Trae Young got traded. Who actually won that trade? We'll talk about that. We're also going to go ahead and talk about Anthony Davis and Giannis. They've also been linked to possible trades for this trade deadline that's coming up on February 5th. We're going to go ahead and see if there's any truth to that. And of course, it hurts that Anthony Davis also tore some ligaments in his wrist, so that kind of probably creates some havoc, on the Mavericks side. And then we'll go ahead and talk about the Nuggets. Are they going to struggle without Jokic? They're going to miss Jokic for some time. What does this mean for Nuggets, right? And then we're going to go ahead and dovetail into our weekly segment about the Warriors. We're going to talk about, the trade deadline's coming up. Kuminga's been the talk. Who's gonna take Kuminga, and what are we gonna get in return, right? The other thing is the starting five seems to be set, but who's the rotation? We're gonna go ahead and talk about that. Who should be the rotation? And then the other thing that Toine has talked about is Draymond Green. Should he be coming off the bench, right? Maybe he does. So. Maybe he should, right? We'll talk about that as well. So, and then they have an 8-game homestand coming up as well. And we're going to go ahead. This is their time to go ahead and make a move if they're going to do anything during this, during this the stretch run right here. They should be able to do some damage, especially, your prediction is something different than mine, but we'll talk about that. All right, brother. So without further ado, let's get into it, bro. So, all right. So the Atlanta Hawks traded their 4-time All-Star Trae Young, right? Now they traded them to the Washington Wizards in exchange for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. Now, when you look at this, it doesn't seem to be very even, right? You look at, some of the writers on ESPN, they graded this as a B for both teams.
They're crazy.
I want your opinion, bro. What do you think, man? What do you think the deal is on this trade? What kind of a grade would you give it for both teams?
So I'd give the Hawks a D. I think,
D.
Yeah, but that being said, it's my lights went out.
Yeah.
That being said, it's my understanding that they're trying to clear cap room so they can pick up Anthony Davis. But on the flip side, in order to get Anthony Davis, my guess is they're going to have to give up some draft capital, as well as some salary to match. So I don't know who they think they're going to trade. Maybe McCollum and Kispert will be the two they trade. I don't know, but at its face value, it's not a very even trade. I mean, if McCollum was 10 years younger, then it would. I would call that pretty even. But at the age that McCollum is, I just don't think it's very, I'd give it a C- at best.
Yeah, I was kind of perplexed about the team, the players that were all involved in this trade. If you look at the metrics for the Hawks, right? Now, you talked about this a couple of podcasts ago. I asked you the question, hey, are the Hawks better without Trae Young? And this is even way before any of this trade deadline coming, right? Yeah. And you kind of said, hey, look, I think they're actually playing better without him. Daniels seems to be the point guard that fits better than Trae Young. And then you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who actually came from the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're more defensive minded. They're a better defensive team with those two guys on the floor. Trae Young, his liability is defense. He's a smaller guy, right?
Correct.
But he's so good offensively that sometimes the coach will kind of turn its head, just like Steve Kerr turns his head with, Curry's turnovers, right? Trae Young's liability on defense, because his offense was so good, the coach just said, hey, we can live without, with some of his liabilities on defense because he's so good on offense, because he is actually a really good distributor, right? So what happened here is I think that you might be right. There's probably another trade looming, right? This probably clears more cap space. I don't know the details on that. We're not going to get into the details on that.
No, yeah.
What I can tell you is that CJ McCollum is not as good a shooter as Trae Young, but he's serviceable as a shooter.
I don't want to downplay him. He's a good player, and
he's just old. He's just older, right? He's a lot older.
Yeah, he'll fit in Atlanta, but you're giving up youth. You're giving up youth for a player who maybe has 2 good seasons left. So that's an uneven trade. At least get a 2nd-round pick or a late 1st-round pick. Just picked up some draft capital.
Just scream discontent. They just wanted to kind of get rid of Trae Young and get something in return. Whatever. And that return wasn't that great. Corey Kispert's kind of not even really in the rotation, really. I mean, he's been hurt, and he is a decent kind of bench player, but he's not somebody that commands a 4-time All-Star type of, caliber player, but CJ McCollum from a defensive standpoint is better than Trae Young. So I think from a net, they think that they got something better in return because he kind of fits, he's more of a veteran and he kind of fits in the current mold of a better defensive squad with Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson. Of course, the emergence of Jalen Johnson being like a beast of a player. So I think that's
Yep.
probably the thinking, but I think you're right. There's something in the works. Like you said, Anthony Davis could be coming. I don't know, but that whole wrist injury kind of screwed up those plans, right? So
Yeah.
so you,
Well, the other thing that I would note is the interesting thing is, did this trade set the market on what to expect in terms of value for some of these named players?
interesting.
Right?
You're saying this is
Anthony Davis wants to, they're thinking about moving him. Ja Morant, they're talking about moving him.
Yep.
There's some rumors. The two guys over on the Pelicans, Jonathan Kuminga is another one. So you got a lot of players that want to be moved, and Trae Young is a bigger name and a bigger attraction than most of those players. Now, I wouldn't say bigger than Davis, but definitely bigger than Murphy and Herb Jones and Kuminga. And if that's all you can get, like, what are you supposed to get for those other guys?
Interesting. So interesting, but those are some franchises that are not necessarily guys that have GMs that kind of command a lot of stuff either, right? They haven't necessarily had that reputation, so it could be just a function of the personnel from a GM standpoint to be able to kind of try and pull a Danny Ainge and get everything you can, right?
Yeah.
So it's possible with that too, but it's not a bad thought that it's possible that this kind of set the bar as to what to expect for.
I'll be curious to see. I'll be curious to see if that's in fact. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but I'm curious if that's the trend, right? Like
Yeah.
teams are going, yeah, I'm not giving you any draft capital. This
Yeah.
is what you're getting, and that's it.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, okay, so
Yeah.
let's dovetail to the next topic. So Giannis and Anthony Davis, right? Anthony Davis
Yeah.
and Giannis. Well, Giannis, we'll talk about Giannis because we kind of brushed upon Anthony Davis, but we'll come back to Anthony Davis a little bit. So Giannis, he's been kind of, on the off season, he had kind of made commentary that, if he were to go anywhere, he would go to New York, right? And then, of course, he's been linked over the years to the Warriors because we
He
know
loves Steph.
loves Giannis, and Steph Curry and Giannis have a relationship. I think it all stemmed from the first All-Star game they played together, and Steph, that was his number one pick, right? And I think
Yeah.
that probably kind of
And
lead by example, right? Not
Yeah.
very boisterous guys,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
don't try and rock the boat too much, right? They'll just
Yeah.
lead by example type guys. But now it seems that Giannis has kind of changed his position a little bit. He's been teetering a little bit about, wanting to stay in Milwaukee for his career because, once Middleton was gone, and then, they didn't really have much around him. And Brooke Lopez left, then they acquired Kevin Porter Jr. recently, Kyle Kuzma, to try and get, because, I think the front office kind of sensed that Giannis was getting a little bit, uncomfortable and not settled about what the team they were building. So they were trying to do whatever they can to keep this guy happy. But, it seems to me that he's teetering. It's probably because of his personality. He doesn't want to, show that he doesn't want to play for the organization anymore. He wants to show that he's still there. But probably deep down inside, it's possible that he wants to leave. What are your thoughts, man? Do you think that there's going to be a coming with Giannis in this upcoming trade deadline?
So a couple things come to mind. So number one, yes, I think he's a really nice guy, and he's going to sort of make his feelings known, but he's not going to push it, in terms of, get me out of here. I don't see him as that type of guy. But if I'm looking at it from, if I'm the GM, if I'm the administration for the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm going, all right, what are we doing here exactly? I mean, we can argue that they kind of overpaid Miles Turner a little bit, and now they're kind of strapping themselves because they don't really have enough free room to kind of pick up any free agents or anything like that because of some of the guys that they have and that what they paid them. So I'm thinking, do we want to keep him? Giannis is he's a generational talent. I mean, like,
Sure.
the other day I was watching a game. I don't know which game it was, but they were saying, if I were to create an NBA player, Giannis would be what that NBA player would look like. Yeah, he's like the prototype. And for him to have really only won one championship, and to be honest, really only had an opportunity to win one. I mean, they've kind of been a disappointment in the postseason. As a Milwaukee GM, you got to think about, is our fan base going to ride us? If we don't do this, is it better that we get a couple of younger players and some picks, and try to build this? My thinking is somewhere along the lines, like, I think that So yes, I think he's going to be moved. Maybe
You think
not.
it's going to be moved by this upcoming trade deadline?
Not by this. Maybe not by this upcoming, but I think he'll be gone by next season.
Okay. You know, we talked a little bit today about some scenarios, right, with the
Correct.
Warriors,
Yes.
right? And
Yep.
you know, by the way, for the audience, we typically have two segments. We talk about the NBA, general NBA first, and then we dovetail into a dedicated section or segment for the Warriors, right? But we're gonna go ahead and intertwine it a little bit just because it's related here, right? Trade deadline stuff. So, you know, I painted a picture to you. The Warriors, you know, have been linked to Giannis for years, right? And
Correct.
Lacob wants to take advantage of, you know, the twilight of Steph Curry's career when he's still playing at an elite level, man. He's 37 years old, but he's still an elite player, man. I mean, that guy is playing kind of MVP caliber type of effort right now. But the thing is that the team is only 2 games above 500. I predict it's going to be a lot more by next week. We'll talk about that when we get there. But I painted a picture. If you could keep, you know, the Warriors' main guys, and the main guys being now Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry, and you get Giannis, right? You probably have to give up Draymond Green. You probably have to give up, you know, Moses Moody. You'd have to give up, you know, Kuminga, of course, right?
Quinton Post.
The Post, Buddy Hield, you know, but if you kept left behind, like a D Santos was left behind, you have a D'Anthony who was left behind, a Pat Spencer, you know, a Will Richard, right? You know, with that, and then Al Horford, right? Old man Horford, you have those guys left with those big three. You know, I think that's actually pretty attractive. And you throw in a bunch of, you know, you've pretty much lay it out for the GM of the Milwaukee Bucks. Say, hey, look, everybody you can take except for Curry and Butler. Everybody else, you have your pick. And then we'll throw in whatever amount of draft picks you think is reasonable. We'll go ahead and figure that out.
I think that number's 4.
Probably.
That's
Me. But I think the
pick.
Warriors would be willing to do it. I honestly believe the Warriors would be willing to do it. But because to combine Giannis and Curry together, man, that would make the valuation even more for the most valued franchise in the NBA being the Warriors. Consider that. They haven't won a championship in 3 years, right? They're still very valuable. And you get Giannis now, he's an international flair along with Curry. Dude, it's must-see TV big time, right? So, but with the team, with those three, with everybody left behind, do you think that's competitive?
So yes, I think it's competitive. I will tell you, and it's not quite the same scenario, but you know, historically, putting 3 players together on a team of that caliber, and honestly, I don't know if Butler's not at the same caliber as Giannis and Steph. He's like 1A, right? He's not.
He's a better version of Draymond Green.
But you know, I look at when they moved when the Brooklyn Nets got was it KG and Pierce, and there was somebody else.
You're talking about the Celtics.
No, this was the Nets did it, right?
With KD. That's right. You threw me out with KG. Okay, KD. Yeah.
Right. I see when they did it with Durant and Harden
and Kyrie
Irving.
Yes.
And I see, you know, when they tried to do it at Phoenix with Durant and Booker and the other guy, the guy from Washington that's always hurt. Now he's on the Clippers. You know, they try
Bradley Beal.
They try to do that. It doesn't often work.
But in those cases, you brought multiple guys at the same time, where in this case, you're only bringing one guy.
Bringing one. That is a difference. Correct. That is a difference. So I think they would be competitive. I mean, you and I talked about, I don't think they'd be at the level of the Thunder. I mean, I think they'd have
anybody is though, honestly.
They'd have a puncher's chance of beating
absolutely. And that's all they want.
But I think they would be a little bit below the Houston Rockets is where I would kind of put them.
Well, they wouldn't be as deep, right? But the thing is that the players that are left behind, a lot of them have gotten some valuable playing time, but they're not at the same caliber athletically as the Houston Rockets. But those big 3, dude, they're a problem, right? They would easily be the best starting 3 in the league as far as production and plus minus, whatever metric we want to use. That would be unbelievable, right? I think that Lacob, Dunleavy, and all of the front office of the Warriors, they're figuring something out. They're going to try. I think that they're going to, you know, if they pull it off, great. I just think that they're going to try and make a move, man. They're going to. But I think, you know, it's only 2 weeks away, right? Realistically, you know, or actually, no, it's more than that. It's actually a week away from when things kind of start for the Warriors, but the trade deadline ends on February 5th, right? So that's almost a month away. So, they're going to be on the call and try to figure something out, man. I think Giannis wants to make a move, but he doesn't want to say it publicly.
Yeah, and again, if I'm the GM for Milwaukee, this is who I want. You can keep Draymond. I don't want Draymond. I want Will Richard. I want Quinton Post. I want Jonathan Kuminga, and I want Pajemski. Those are the 4 guys that I want. If I'm them, I don't want Hield. I don't want Seth Curry. I don't want, maybe even throw Gee in that mix, because at least those guys are young and they have an opportunity to grow. With Hield and Seth Curry and Draymond, you pretty much know what you got.
The only problem, though, is that you need to throw in Draymond and Kuminga to make the salaries work.
Correct. Now, let me ask you this. If they push back and go, we want Butler instead of Draymond, do you do it?
That would be tough. That would be I wouldn't put it past the Warriors to still do it, honestly.
Yeah.
They probably throw in one less, pick, for that kind of a scenario, right?
Yeah.
We'll give you 4 picks if you take Draymond. We'll give you 2 picks if you want Jimmy Butler. That kind of a scenario, right?
Yeah.
And then you had brought up, that the offer that the Warriors would offer to the Milwaukee Bucks isn't as attractive as other teams would offer.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, that's my biggest concern. If you look at someone like the Pelicans, for example. Now, granted, I'm going to assume that Giannis has the type of relationship with Milwaukee where they're not just going to send him to Siberia.
Correct.
Right? They're not going to do that. So the Pelicans are, but if you're telling me I get Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and even though he's hurt, you get Zion maybe, and you get a couple of first-round picks, like that looks to me a lot better than what the Warriors are offering.
I think though that Giannis in his stage of his career, being what is he 31, I think it is, right around there, that
Correct.
He wants to get on the championship, and he doesn't want to go to a location that's not going to yield him a championship within the next year. And I think that's why he picked New York. That's why he was looking at New York, because New York is close, right? The Oklahoma City Thunder, I don't think he'd go. It just doesn't fit for them. The Houston Rockets would be another one, right? The Houston Rockets have a lot of assets they can throw to Milwaukee, right? They're another one that can make it. The Phoenix Suns, I don't know. I don't think that they're attractive enough for him. Los Angeles Lakers, hey, Los Angeles Lakers are always kind of like, a franchise that is always going to be like,
but, I think outside of Reeves, the pieces aren't good enough.
I agree with you.
I wouldn't even consider LeBron at this point of value.
Not as he used to be. Yeah, he doesn't command.
Yeah,
41 years old.
Got Reeves and what else? Who else?
They don't. I mean, Rui Hachimura, Dalton Peck, freaking Vanderbilt, Jackson Hayes.
Yeah, I would agree that's what the Warriors are offering. That's just kind of.
And that's the point that you brought up, that Giannis has the relationship with the front office where he's not going to be sent to Siberia, like you said. That comes into play, man. Toronto would be a potential destination too.
Toronto would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be a potential. And in that Masai Ujiri, that guy's very, very good GM, so he'd probably figure something out. But
let me ask you this, because you brought this player up. If you're Detroit, would you give up Duren for Giannis?
I think so, because that would make them way over the top. They would be championship caliber immediately, dude.
So there's something, if they want to give us some draft capital.
Right.
Duren's a hell of a player.
He is a hell of a.
If I'm a Buck, I'm hell of excited to get Duren.
Yeah. But dude, you're losing like a Giannis who is like a way better player than Duren. Yeah, like way better, right?
No, but you're getting youth and you're getting
back. I get you. I get you, man. I get you. Yeah. All right, bro. So let's dovetail to the Anthony Davis, right? Now he's been linked to a lot of Eastern Conference teams, but this whole kind of injury thing kind of messed things up, right? This poor guy, he is the Bill Walton of this generation, man. Probably not as severe as Bill Walton, because he didn't really play as long. Bill Walton didn't play as long as Anthony Davis has. But if Anthony Davis had been healthy for, at least half of the games that he's missed from his injuries, he'd be considered one of the top of all time. He's already in that kind of realm already. Like, he's being talked about as a really good player because he's so versatile, right? Yeah. But now this has all been kiboshed. I think that screwed the Mavericks are cursed, dude. That whole freaking the freaking trade, that just looms as far as like just voodoo X, stuff.
They want to get for Davis what they should have gotten for Luka. That's what they want, and
that's what they want.
It ain't gonna happen.
bug that's always been kind of like, looming over this guy's. It's loomed its head right here, right before the trade deadline. So that messed all this up. But let me ask you this: what teams do you think would fit for Anthony Davis if this had not happened? You think the Warriors would be a team? Let me ask you that.
I wouldn't want him just simply on his reliability. So he'd have to go to a team that's got some front court depth where you're not totally relying on him, but if you can keep him healthy for the postseason, he's going to help you win a championship.
So that
But
would be a team that jumps to my mind is the freaking Phoenix Suns.
correct. The
Phoenix Suns have
Phoenix
Mark
Suns,
Willie, Nick Richards, and Oso Iguodala. Those three right now are bigs, right?
the Boston Celtics is another one that I would consider. Again, all these teams we're bringing up, we gotta figure out what are they giving up.
They're gonna give back in return, right?
Yeah, what are they giving up in return, right?
Exactly.
But I think those teams are assuming that they keep the core of their starting five. Then I think that those teams would be. But Davis is he's hurt too often, man. He's unreliable.
Yeah. No,
You
I
know?
hear you, man.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
I think that if he had not gotten hurt, he probably would have been moved. Now that he's hurt, he ain't being moved, man.
Yeah, but to me, even if he wasn't exactly hurt at this time, he's always hurt.
He's always hurt.
He's
That poor guy,
always
man.
hurt.
He is such a great talent. And dude, you and I over the years have talked. You know how much I like that guy, dude.
Yeah, no,
You know how much I like them. And knowing how much I like him, even if he became available to the Warriors right now, given his history, I don't know if I take him now. Honestly, I
no,
don't know.
what?
Yeah,
It's just a tease. All you is a tease. You
exactly,
get excited and then he's out 3 weeks. You
exactly.
get excited again and he's out a month. It's just like forget it, man.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna build myself up and then just get the rug pulled out from under me.
yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah.
All right, brother. So I think there's gonna be some more trades coming down the line. I mean, we're gonna. I would say within the next week, next
Yeah,
podcast
he's
we have.
here, but Ja Morant is
Ja Morant is another one that's
Morant.
hot, right?
Yeah.
He's definitely somebody that has value. I don't say he has a lot of value. He has value. I think his off court issues make his luster a little less,
Yep.
because he's
Yep.
kind of like a headache for potential
Yeah.
headache, right? Probably has to be moved to the right location. I mean, a big city location probably isn't a good attraction for that guy because that'd probably be a lot more
Yep.
teased. That would be like a temptation for him to get back into that kind of world, right?
Yeah.
Memphis is not even like that, right? If you go to like Los Angeles or the Bay Area or freaking, any other Chicago, there you go, man.
Yeah.
It's all over, right?
So one team who doesn't come up, and I brought this up at lunch, and I think they need to do something is the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
They have to do something.
Well, they have to get tougher, like you said.
Well, they're stagnant right now. I'm looking at the standings. They're 7th in the league, right? They're just not doing well. They need a kick, and maybe someone like Anthony Davis on that squad. I've personally rooted, like, if you want toughness, get Draymond Green, give us Jared Allen, and I'm good to go on that front. I don't know if they'd be willing to do that. I don't know if that's feasible, but
They might do that. Can you
but
imagine?
I think Cleveland needs to do something.
Can you imagine Mobley and Davis on the same team?
That'd be freaking scary.
Because they could guard on the perimeter and down low.
But see, here's the thing, right? If I'm the Mavericks, I don't want Jared Allen for Anthony Davis. That's another guy that's hurt every once in a while.
Yeah.
He's just he's younger, but
Yeah.
but he's not as hurt as Davis. But anyway, I just want to throw that in there because I think they have to do something.
Not a bad call, man. I suspect that they're probably going to be active in this trade deadline because they're far from where they were last year.
And they were one of the favorites to represent the East.
Yep, right from exactly. I think they were the odds-on favorite in the offseason to be representing the East in the finals, right? Before the season started. All right, brother. So let's get, because we're running out of time here, brother. So okay, the other topic before we dovetail in the Warriors, because I don't think we're gonna have enough time to go over the East and West hot teams too much. But Nikola Jokic got hurt, right? He suspended his knee on December 29th, and he's out at least 4 weeks. So that puts him until the end of this month in January with just being reevaluated, right? This is going to affect this team tremendously in the short term, right? We know that they're going to lose some ground. They're not going to be as, impactful with probably the best player in the world, right? The guy is unbelievable. And I think he's odds-on favorite to be the MVP when, again, right? He's always going to be in the top for MVP because just the way that guy plays his game, right? He's just a super smart guy. He doesn't really jump off the floor, as far as athleticism. You would think that something like this had happened to him with his hyperextended knee, would have probably happened, but it happened, right? So in the short term, these guys have lost some ground a little bit, but they're still potent. That I think, in my opinion, this is a blessing in disguise long term, because this helps develop the team, chemistry with these other guys that don't necessarily get a chance to play. And I think that this is going to help them long term. But I wanted to get your thoughts as far as what this means for the Denver Nuggets. What?
So here's my biggest concern. When the season started, I had mentioned how much Jokic was out of shape. And we had talked about how their record at home was poor in relationship to previous seasons. Now, if they time it right, I think that Jokic can come back, and if the team can stay at 500 while he's out, then but I'm worried he's going to be out of shape again, right? Because he can't really do much on his knee. And then it's going to take another month for him to get going again. And then we're going to see where we're at. So to me, the thing that I kind of see I see Denver falling back in the standings, maybe 5, 6 seed when the playoffs start, and being kind of team that nobody wants to play.
Yeah. I mean, right now they are the third seed right now. So right now they're 13 games above 500.
And they're 500 ball on the last 10 games, right? Some of which was with Joker. Yeah, some of them. But, Minnesota's right on their tail. Since, they've been slipping a little bit. So I think right now during his outage, I think Houston and Minnesota and possibly the Lakers are going to jump Denver, right? I think Denver will be below them when he gets back.
Still think that Denver is still good, assuming that, Aaron Gordon doesn't get hurt again because he's back now, right? But assuming Aaron Gordon stays healthy, you got Jamal Murray, who's playing out of his mind right now. You got, guys like, Jonas Valanciunas, Peyton Watson was a guy I was brought up as a guy that, today at lunch. We also, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, he just came back. He's been injured too. But even with Christian Brown being hurt, Aaron Gordon being out, this team was still rolling, man. And now you're getting some of these other tertiary players that are starting to get some time. A Julian Strother type kind of guy, a Julian Pickett type guy who's getting some minutes now. Zeke Naji, guys like this that don't normally get the playing time, they're getting playing time, and they're getting valuable playing time that I think is going to help this team long term. The only thing is that the West, if this was the East, it wouldn't hurt them as bad, but they're in the West. And when you lose a caliber player like Nikola Jokic for extended period of time, it's going to affect your team in the short term, right? So I think you're right. They're going to lose some ground. I just don't think they're going to lose that much ground as you think. I think they're still better than the Lakers. They're probably not better than the Houston Rockets.
You think they're better than the Lakers without Joker?
I think they're still better than the Lake Joker. Okay. That's my opinion.
That would be the team that I would put. I think Houston's better than them without Joker.
I think so too. I think Minnesota and them are similar in my opinion.
Minnesota's better than them without Joker. I got those teams jump him. He'll be fit. They'll be fifth right now.
Okay. And I say that they probably slip no farther than fourth. That's my call. They're right now at 3. I think they're going to be right around.
We'll see.
That's my call. But long term, I think this is going to help them out tremendously. Assuming that Jokic comes back.
I think when Joker gets back, they'll be 5th or 6th. And I think that even when he gets back, they're going to drop a little bit more. They're going to have a little bit of a lull, just kind of bringing him back in, and then they're going to start kind of ascending.
Yeah, I don't know, man. We'll see, man. But I think this team is still good. I know that they're playing tonight, and I don't know how they're doing right now. Really, I think they've already played. I think they're playing right now. But anyway, all right, brothers. Yeah. So we pretty much are going to cut the segment short. We're going to go into our Warrior talk right now, bro.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So, I teased the beginning. The Warriors, they're one of the hottest teams right now in the NBA at 7-3. They've won 7 of the last 10 games. They've been one, like I said, there's been 3 other teams in the NBA, and, other than the Celtics. Celtics have been 8-2 in their last 10, but the Warriors have been 7-3. The Detroit Pistons are 7-3. You got the Wolves at 7-3, and then you got the Phoenix Suns at 7-3 in the last 10. So they're one of the hotter teams in the league, and they seem to have figured out their starting 5, right?
Now, you got the Clippers at 8-2, by the way.
Okay, Clippers too. Yeah, that's right, and they just beat the Warriors, right? So, so yeah, you're right. So Clippers, they're 8-2. So these are some of the hottest teams. So, but the Warriors seem to have figured out their starting 5, at least for the time being. They probably had the most, lineup changes in the entire league. Because they have a pretty deep team. Because if you look at, the players 4 through 12. There's not much variance, right? But 1, 2, and 3 being, Curry, Butler, and Draymond. Those are kind of the set 3 for right now, right? But then everybody else has kind of been a moving target. But now they've settled on a starting five right now with Curry, Butler, Moody, Draymond Green, and Quentin Post. So far, it seems to be doing well, but the rotation is still a mess, man. So I want to get your opinion, bro. What should be the starting five?
Okay, so
what should be the rotation, man?
okay, before I answer this, I want to ask you a question. Do the Warriors have depth, or do the Warriors have a bunch of guys that are equally sucky?
That are equally sucky. I think they have a bunch of guys that are similar talent-wise.
And so that's where the depth part kind of, I don't know how deep they are. They just have a lot of
they can match quite a bit more than
they have the
in
same
league.
parts, you know. That so to me, you know, you and I have been talking about this, and to me, I know what I got in Buddy Hield. For the most part, I know what I got in Seth Curry, even though for whatever reason he hasn't played since the first game that he joined, and then he hasn't played it. You know, correct. You know what you got in Moody. You know, you pretty much know what you got in Podziemski. You know, so to me, like, I think that you need to play Santos. You need to play Spencer.
He's been playing more lately, though.
Yep. You need to play Spencer. You need to play Will.
He's not playing.
Correct. So those guys, to me, need to be more into the rotation.
You're talking about Melton too, right? You said Melton.
Yeah, well, Melton, yes. But Melton, I would have Melton as, we have him as a starter, isn't he?
He's not a starter right now. He's coming. He's like one of the first guys off the bench.
Well, Melton, absolutely. Melton, because he's playing himself back from an ACL.
No, you're talking about rotation now, right? You're picking the rotation right now. So, okay. So do you agree with the starting five as it is right now?
Let's see. We got, we got Steph,
Butler,
Draymond,
Moody,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. See, to me, I would replace Moody with Melton.
I would too. But I think the reason why he hasn't been put in there is because he's still working back from his knee issue, right?
I agree.
So they're slowly building up his minutes, but he's probably going to be there at some point soon. So I agree with you. He should be in there.
And I think that the first guard off the bench should be Will Richard.
But he's not.
He's not. But he should be the first guard. Correct.
Podziemski's the first guard to come off the bench.
Correct.
Right?
He should be the first guard.
I agree with you, bro. I agree that Will Richard has, you know, if you look, again, let me ask you this question. You have Will Richard, Brandon Podziemski. You have, forget the Anthony Melton, but Will Richard, Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody, right? Those three. Put them in order how you want them to come out.
Oh, so for me personally, I got Will Richard first, Moody second, and Pods third. That's how I have them.
Isn't that interesting? Because I would probably say the same thing, but Pods is the one that comes off the bench first.
Correct.
You know, he's definitely a coach favorite. And I think it's because of his attitude. And I think because he, you know, does the dirty work, right? He rebounds well for his size. He does.
Correct.
And he does, you know, take charges very well. You know, you could argue whether he does play really good defense or not, but, you know, he does do the charge thing very well. And like I said, his rebounding, he's a glue type of guy, right? His shooting has gotten a lot better. That's for sure. You know, his playmaking, he's turnover prone sometimes, right? That's the problem with him. His turnover prone. I agree with you, bro. Will Richard, to me, should be playing more, but yet the coaching staff doesn't play him that much.
And I would throw you a curveball. If the Warriors start turnover happy, right, where they're turning the ball over, then to me, the first guard off the bench should be Pat Spencer.
He's not playing.
No, I'm just telling you. I don't think.
I know. I'm just saying, but that's frustrating that you and I think alike. You know, these guys deserve more playing time, but yet they're not. Yeah. You know, and Guy Santos, it took so long for that guy to start getting playing time. He should have been playing a long time ago. Right?
I agree.
Yeah. But I agree with
Guy should probably be the first forward off the bench, and then Horford should be the first big off the bench.
Okay, so let me ask you this about putting what do you think? What are your thoughts about having Draymond Green come off the bench?
Oh, I agree. I think that right now, dude, I am really, how would I put this? I don't know what to do with Draymond. You know, I think he should come off the bench, and because he's just with the starters, his lack of offense is too costly. And I'll do you one better, Eddie. And this is gonna, I mean, this would piss Draymond off to no end. I am willing to let him start, but what I really question is whether he should be finishing.
Okay. Yeah. But you probably, the way I would play this as a coach, I mean, he's, you know, of course he's going to be a Hall of Fame guy, but the way I play it is if this guy is establishing, you know, he's playing like the Draymond that we know with less turnovers, then I would reward him with closing lineup minutes. But if he starts kind of doing the turnover thing, then then you probably adjust and take him, you know, don't have him go in there, right? Do like the Guy Santos or, you know, some kind of staggered kind of approach. Because, you know, you had talked about it earlier, maybe having an Al Horford, Quentin Post kind of, you know, starting and going with size, right?
Yep.
You know, that's something that we, you know, the Warriors haven't done. We've always been playing small for under the Steve Kerr system, right? Maybe it's time to kind of change that up a little bit, right?
Yeah. To me, there are certain players that we can't afford to have on the court at the same time. So to me, you can't afford to have, like Draymond and maybe Pods at the same time. I think that's a problem.
Turnover happy, man.
Not only are they turnover happy, their Pods' offense is better than Draymond's.
Yes.
But they don't command enough attention.
They don't.
On the offensive end. Right?
Yes.
So there's certain players that you put Draymond with, and we're like, dude, like Draymond and TJD should never be on the court together. They should never, ever be on the court together.
Yes.
Because it's just, you're giving up so much offense.
Absolutely.
So to me, if TJD plays with Quentin Post or Al Horford, then Draymond cannot play those minutes.
Yes.
You need production. You need Melton. You need Butler. You need Curry. Maybe even Buddy Hield at that point. You need someone that's going to produce offense. So that is also a problem with Draymond. Like, to some extent, Draymond and GP2 on the court together, it can be a little questionable.
I agree with you because they're both kind of suspect shooters.
Correct.
And the Warriors' total offensive scheme and system is predicated on shooting. And what's interesting is that they don't have much shooting other than Curry reliably.
Yeah.
And last year, Curry wasn't the best 3-point shooter on the team. It was Quentin Post, and Quentin Post has regressed from his 3-point shooting percentage from last year. So they've had to make some changes to their offense, which they have done now. They're starting to cut more to the basket. They're doing a read-react, but they're not staying on the perimeter like they used to, which is a great adjustment, something I've been screaming about for weeks, right? Yeah. I'm glad they've adjusted. But you're right, man. There's certain combinations that can't be on the floor at the same time because they don't stretch the floor. They don't spread the floor like the Warriors system needs. They need floor spreading, which is why I think, let's dovetail into trades, right? The Warriors trade targets, right?
Yes.
Now, the Warriors have been linked to teams such as the Brooklyn Nets.
Yep.
They've also been linked to the Phoenix Suns, the Sacramento Kings, the New Orleans Pelicans, and the Mavericks, right? The Dallas Mavericks. Now, out of those teams, who do you think yields us what we need the most?
There's only two teams in those that you mentioned that have appealing players to me. That's the Pelicans and the Nets. So to me, Trae, Murphy, and Herb Jones are appealing to me.
Absolutely. Me too.
And from the Nets, Nick Claxton, and Michael Porter Jr. To me, those players, and if I were to rank them individually, from an offensive production perspective, I would go Trae Murphy, Porter, Claxton, and Herb Jones last. That's the way that I would rate them 1 through 4 of the ones that I want. Now, I've been clamoring for size. So if size is a thing, obviously Claxton would be one, because he's a developing player, but to me, if we got Murphy or Porter and we're able to get them for just one first round draft pick, if we can figure that out, dude, I'd be giddy. To me, that I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. I agree. So I agree with you that Murphy tonight, from a FanDuel standpoint, scored 61.5 points, bro.
Jesus. He's on fire.
He was on fire, man, right?
Yeah.
So, and I used him in a few lineups and, it's doing all right. But Trae Murphy, for sure, he is a player that can spread the floor, which is what the Warriors system needs. It needs somebody like a Trae Murphy or a Michael Porter Jr.
Correct.
He needs somebody to fill the role that Klay Thompson left behind, the void that Klay Thompson left behind. Early on, it was Buddy Hield who was filling that void, and he did a decent job early on, right? But he's the definition of streaky, man. He's a streaky shooter, and they need something more consistent, which is why they need to make a move. They're going to make a move, right? Kuminga's gone, dude. But what I've heard is that the market for Kuminga has softened up quite a bit. That the only real teams that have shown real strong interest in Kuminga have been the Sacramento Kings, probably because of Ron Adive, right? Because he's an old Warrior owner, right? And he's gotten all the old coaches, all the old Warrior players, so he's following suit, right? But then the Suns is the other team that has shown some interest, right? And they had a deal on the table in the offseason. I think Royce O'Neal was somebody that they were throwing in, but the Warriors didn't want to do that. Mark Williams is a guy I think that would fit well for the Warriors because he's a big guy he's a big, strong presence. He has some shooting ability. He's only $6 million, man, right?
Yep. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't hate that. But again, some of these players that we're talking about, like Mark Williams, they'd hurt me if we have to give out a first-round draft pick.
No, I
we
think
can
we
figure
would.
out how to do it without that, then yes. But
Yeah, for
with,
sure.
with Porter and with Claxton and with Trey Murphy, I'm willing to give up one, depending on the scenario, maybe even two, depending if we get someone else back. For Herb Jones, I like Herb Jones. He's a great defensive player, but how would I put this? If we don't give up Draymond, then there's another combination we can't have on the court. You can't have Draymond and Herb Jones on the court together. Yeah, you just can't do it.
Yeah, but
No,
I think with in either trade scenario, either depending on who they get in return. Now, I don't know what Trey Murphy's contract situation is, nor do I know Herb Jones right off the top of my head. But I can tell you for sure, Kuminga's involved because he's like $25 million or 23 million, whatever it is, and Draymond Green's 25, right? So I think as much as the Warriors are saying that Draymond Green is not on the trade block, I think that they're willing to deal him to get something in return, right? I think so. It depends. They're going to say publicly that they don't want to move this guy, but I think that they would be willing to move this guy to get somebody like, if it commands getting a Giannis, heck yeah, dude, he is gone, right? Now, if it commands getting someone like a Trey Murphy, I don't know. I think maybe they think Kuminga's enough, right?
Yeah.
But if they can get like a Claxton and a freaking Porter and a Murphy, then maybe, right? Then it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But it really depends on the kind of deal that you get back for a Draymond Green. But
Murphy's at $28 million a year.
Yeah, so he's
he's
more than both Draymond
than
and freaking. So yeah, so there you go, man. So yeah, I agree with you, bro. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, that's my number one target. Claxton was another name I brought up too earlier to some of my friends. I think he's a great fit. Michael Porter Jr. I don't know about him. I mean, he's kind of like he's good. I'm not sure about him, man. That's just fine.
What's ironic is I like Trey Murphy. He's my favorite.
Yeah, out of the group.
But I honestly think that from a system fit, I think
Porter's
Michael Porter Jr. is the best system fit of the four.
Yeah, but he's not as good a defender as Trey Murphy is. And Trey Murphy doesn't shoot as.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, but from an offensive system fit, dude, he's 6'10", bro. He's a big boy. I was listening to some podcast, I forget which one, but they were calling him, he's like a super Clay. He's like a giant Clay.
Yeah.
Michael Porter's like a giant Clay,
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that'll work.
Well,
but
early in his career, they were calling,
that's the guy that I would like to pick up.
Well, early in Michael Porter's career, they were calling him a poor man's Clay, right?
Yeah.
Because he had the ability to shoot. He has a very quick release, just like Klay Thompson, and he's
very upright.
Taller. Yeah,
and
he's 3 inches taller, but he has back issues, dude. He's had back issues. The guy's a ticking time bomb, in my opinion, from an injury standpoint. That's
he's having a hell of a season too.
He is, man. I agree with you, man. I agree with you.
Yeah.
All right, brother. So the last question I want to ask you before we kind of
we talked about this a little.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, the Warriors are on a 8-game homestand. They have the second game of an 8-game homestand that's happening tonight against the Sacramento Kings, and we all know the Sacramento Kings always give the Warriors a hard time. The Warriors they just had a game a couple of nights ago, which they won, right? And against the Milwaukee Bucks. And, they actually won in a pretty handedly fashion, and we'll see what happens with the Kings tonight. But as far as, what do you think? They're 2 games above 500, maybe 3 if they win tonight, 3 games above 500. So by next week, what do you think? What do you think this record is going to be in this 8-game homestand? And why?
I think they're going to be 5-3 on this homestand. That's what I think.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So they win tonight, and they win against Milwaukee, and then their other win is against.
Yeah. Let me look at the schedule real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I had identified what I think is pain points. So I think number one, the Portland Trailblazers are a pain point. I think that
for sure.
That is a game that they might lose. Okay.
But Atlanta's no slouch either, man.
Correct. But the ones that I think are of really concern are the Knicks, Toronto, Miami. Those are the 3 that I think if I had to pick 3 they're going to lose, I'd pick those 3.
Okay. If I were to look at I think they're going to beat the Kings, although I don't know what the score is right now, but
they're up like 12.
Okay.
And by the way, Atlanta blew out the Nuggets today.
Yep. Atlanta's kind of, they're sneaky, man. They're a sneaky team. So, but I think that the Warriors will handle Atlanta. I think it's a matter of time now that they beat Portland, and I think they will. So I think they're going to beat Portland. New York is going to be a problem. I agree with you. They'll beat Charlotte. Okay. So right now I have them losing 1 game against New York potentially. Miami, they're tough for them as well. I think they'll beat Miami, lose to Miami, but I think they'll beat Toronto. So I think they're going to.
You got them at 6-2.
I'm going to go 6-2. So that means that by week's end, they will be 6 games above 500.
Yeah.
That's my call. All right.
Yeah. See, to me is I think like I look at this and I look at Toronto, Miami, and Portland. I look at those 3 games and I think they're going to lose 2 of those 3 to those guys.
Okay.
What they're going to lose 2 to one of them, and they're going to beat one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm the optimist. You're the curmudgeon.
And I'm
right?
a pessimist.
It's
Right.
fun. This is how we do it.
Hopefully we're both wrong and they go 8-0.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah. Chris is drinking that.
But he's he's a homer. Dude,
and I love him. I love Chris.
Bless him, dude. He's a homer.
And I hope he's right. But I'm looking and I'm going, dude. I'm watching all these games. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
But you know what it is? The Warriors, once they figured out, if they can figure out the turnover issue, then they're going to be not necessarily a problem, but they're going to be formidable. Okay, they're not.
Eddie, I already figured out their turnover problem. Sit Draymond.
The Draymond Green, right?
Yeah, sit Draymond, and your turnovers will lower.
Right on, man.
Yeah,
right on.
Yeah.
Well, hey, bro, we covered this, dude. We did a pretty good job. We did it in 15 minutes, man. So, this is Buzzer Beaters. We're here live every Wednesday, although this time we're not live because I unfortunately had a memorial I had to go to on Wednesday, and we tried to record it last night, but we had an issue, technical
difficulties.
Yeah, so we're doing it tonight, Friday night, which means it'll show up tomorrow, on YouTube, Rumble, X, all of these other platforms where you get your podcasts. So we are brought to you by gremlingsmedia.com. Again, we're here every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm Eddie Aparicio. This is Anthony Toine Corral. We're also known as the Cisco Kidz. And we're going to go ahead and sign off and wish you a good rest of the week. Until then, take care.
Happy New Year.
See ya.
Hey everybody, this is William Del Pilar, founder of Grumblings Media, and I want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our all-volunteer efforts at Grumblings Media, smash the subscribe button right here. 100% free, and please consume and share our great content. Click either one of these 2 boxes for more of our work.